Hello, this is Michael Hexter. Welcome to Politics 2100, my YouTube channel here. So this episode I'm calling Supreme Court Decision on Vaccines Continues Long-Term GOP Project to Stupefy the U.S. So this is building on the end of a recent episode about whether Donald Trump is stupid or stupefying of other people and of America overall in terms of the Trumpist project. And I think the idea of stupefaction and stupefying is a critical concept that I've just it's occurred to me as being a good description of what the Republican Party and what the right wing overall beyond the Republican Party has been trying to do for the last 50, 60 years at least, and on and off throughout American history, actually. And so it's a long-term trend, or you could say it's anti-intellectualism, is kind of the usually the way it's kind of discussed in American history, classes or in books and in academic literature about it. But it's really a very sort of starkly revealed by the success of Donald Trump, the political success of Donald Trump, because he himself, he acts stupid often, but also I submit in that episode 62, that he's also cunning, and he has an intelligence that people underrate. He's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's also not as stupid as some people claim he is. But meanwhile, though, the more important thing is that he, I think in an evil manner, or in a very, very short-sighted, very, very self-centered manner, is trying to bring down the intelligence level of other people, and he has expressed in the past a preference for poorly educated people, for, he said that he appreciates them very much, and so forth and so on, because he is a sociopathic swindler who likes to, you could say in a more sort of politically correct formulation, that he's an unscrupulous marketer, okay, and unscrupulous businessman, and and with many, many lawsuits that show that to be the case, that he's lost. That this, in politics, this becomes this melds in this tendency to try to find the stupid in people, and to find people, the gullibility, the credulousness in people, and then using that to your own benefit, and to the benefit of some business, to the benefit of your own political career, however it works. That's the modus operandi of many people in the Republican Party, and that is the way they, along with the media echo chamber that they have used and they've developed, or that has been developed around them, including Fox News and other outlets now, and also many dispersed channels like my channel, and but obviously I'm not in that ecosystem at all. But anyway, using the internet and social media to also and the bias of, for instance, Facebook and so forth and so on, in favor of this kind of agitation and emotional engagement that the right wing specializes in, and tries to stir up and keep people in a more, sorry to use some people might be offended by this word, a primitive or regressed or immature state of mind where they're furious or they're anxious and they're but not thinking clearly. And so, in a way, being made stupid or stupefied by a stream of information, quote unquote information, or a stream of a discourse, a narrative that's being fed them. And so that stupefaction is a project that has there are very specific economic and political economic parameters to it. It's not just sort of, a bad deed done by bad people. It is, but it's also bad deeds done by bad people. But it's basically an anti-regulatory push by businesses and by large businesses, and the growth of this legal, let's say, tradition, you could say, of trying to undermine the regulatory apparatus of the U.S. government by manufacturing various principles, including the non-delegation principle. So what's called anti-Chevron in the language of Chevron is a corporation, but there was a decision in 1984 where there's a tradition of what's called Chevron deference. It's a lousy name, but anyway, it means that the court and the law defers to a bureaucracy rather than to Congress. In other words, Congress can it enables the delegation by Congress of the details of implementing policy to a bureaucracy. In the case of the court decision on Friday, there was the court was saying that that OSHA could not formulate rules, not laws, but rules based on the government's mandates, that the Congress had to make them specifically. So this is the idea, the non-delegation principle, which is this right-wing legal principle, is trying to undermine, quote unquote, the administrative state. The administrative state is the state that has a bureaucracy where there are highly educated people who try to implement the laws of the land in using the details of science or of data, and creating a plan that is creating a plan that's based in science and based in the details of our very complex reality, and which requires lots of study, which requires people who spend all day studying data and then creating reports that are then implemented in policy. And this cannot be the function of Congress, Congress cannot spend all its time doing this very detailed work, because Congress has to make laws about all different kinds of they need to be generalist in their approach. So the non-delegation principle is this fantasy that the right wing has, that we can return to some, quote unquote, original vision of the founders, where this kind of bureaucratic decisions cannot be made. That Congress needs to make all the decisions. Okay, and so it imagines a society that is very, very simple and without the base of scientific knowledge that's required in the 21st century, in the 20th and the 21st century, to really do the work that the government is supposed to do. And basically, there are right-wing philanthropists / capitalists who believe that they are better off without regulation. They're anti-regulation. There's certain industries that are likely to be snuffed out. I mean, the fossil fuel industry should be essentially terminated by both laws, by a law telling from Congress saying the EPA, look, we got to phase out the fossil fuel industry, and then the EPA would implement a plan based on those laws, and that is in and of itself. So you see that there are certain industries that have a deeply antagonistic relationship with the government from the point of view of it regulating or having any ideas other beyond what the business plans of the fossil fuel companies are, any ideas about how energy should look in the United States. In other words, they want to own energy. They want to say, well, we're in charge of quote unquote energy. Let us private fossil fuel companies determine how energy works, and maybe we'll throw in a few renewables or do this and that. Chevron has its own geothermal business, so forth and so on. So which is a kind of a renewable form of energy. It is a non-polluting form of energy in general, but the coincidence that it's Chevron is just a coincidence in this case. But anyway, so basically the plan of the right wing for the last 50, 60 years is to undo the bureaucracies that were created in the 1930s mostly, and 1950s and 60s and 70s, to try to imagine that they can be rolled back and basically society, we can go back to the 18th century or the early 19th century in terms of the complexity of our society and so forth and so on, and also basically the scientific knowledge that we now have, that it would befit government to use that knowledge to govern better, okay, to informing Congress, of course, but reporting to Congress, reporting to the president, so forth and so on. But the fantasy in the right-wing vision is that this is optional. This can be, and some of it is just simply short-sighted greed. In other words, they don't want to. Regulations cost money, and in the case of the fossil fuel industry, it will cost if we do the right kind of regulation, it will cost them their entire line of business. Okay, at least the extraction of fossil fuels. If they go into some other energy business, then they're no longer fossil fuel companies. So, but anyway, basically, what I'm drawing a line from is that the divide in our society, the political divide between the polarization between the base of the GOP and the base of the Democratic Party, being the party of the quote unquote front row kids, the party of people who value academic knowledge, who or look up to people who have it, or themselves are some degree of academically inclined people, and they think that that's progress, that's the way to go, and also that government should use that in governing better, and so forth and so on. And then we have the Republican Party that's in a reactionary spiral away from that, and trying, denying the existence of the COVID-19 epidemic, or denying that we can use vaccines as we have with other diseases to minimize the damage of that particular new virus. So they're rejecting you could say it's epistemic closure. They're trying to close themselves off from new information, and they're trying to go back in time. So literally a reactionary, regressive project. But there is a respectable legal theory that also the non that that's trying to promote the non-delegation principle, and which unfortunately is dominant in our Supreme Court. Though it, the decisions this week there were some split decisions. It wasn't all reactionary efforts to undermine the administrative state, but the tendency, the drift of it, and the disorganization of the arguments of the majority is a sign that this is based on this fantasy of being able to roll back the complexity of our society, roll back the complexity of our physical reality, which requires science to understand. And physical also includes pathogens, includes new viruses and pathogens. Physical includes the biological world, the biosphere. And so all of that is something that the right wing is trying to run away from, trying to create a political project that is about playing with and trying to, for instance, to gouge the eggheads, the pointy-headed, nerds, and trying to make fun of them and so forth and so on, and create an environment of where this using Chris Arnade's language, the back row kids can triumph over the front row kids. In the schoolyard, bullies can beat up on the nerd, and so forth and so on. So that's the environment where, or nerds. That's the environment where the right wing wants to return, in some sense, to that era of maybe our lives, and maybe also and create this environment where they have a chance to be the top dog, okay, in terms of using their champion. In the case of Donald Trump, their champion, their sort of bully boy, guy, whatever, this guy who's really not very bright but is cunning, okay, who acts cunning, or acts like he has a zinger, that he's going to get you with. And so, zingers are also things that happen in other parts of the political spectrum and from other, political and cultural figures. Anyway, so this project of stupefaction and stupefying America has a long history. That there was a Know Nothing movement in the 19th century. There's we are a country that has a huge extractive component to our economy and to our and also settler colonialism and basically theft of resources from the native population. And so this legacy of being a quote unquote frontier society, where we had this really a superabundance of all kinds of natural resources and so forth and so on, that created the environment where basically sort of acquisitiveness and greed and just bullying, and grabbing what you can, and then claiming that for yourself, and and also building quote unquote businesses based on that, or there was a path in the United States because of the physical structure of our country, the geography, and also the existing fairly sparsely populated parts of the United States in the 16th and 17th century. So anyway, this long-term disrespect for and disregard for learning and knowledge and so forth and so on that is a current in American history is now, has a renaissance and has its own academic and respectable sounding political expressions and also legal expressions in the Supreme Court doctrine, in the doctrines that the majority of the right-wing majority of the Supreme Court has used, and then also, or has been educated in and been inculcated in. And then there is the basically the culture of the right wing, which is about, again, being this sort of bullying, somewhat unintellectual, anti-intellectual person, or or if you and there are many, in the current GOP leadership and current Trumpist GOP leadership, there are many people who are well educated, and they have to hide it, or they have to not parade it at all, and oftentimes, or they just use it as sort of this calling card. I know this, but really I'm going to act like a sort of uneducated and crude person, and just because that's the way I'm going to win votes. So anyway, so this is a kind of a one episode that is going to be talking about the stupefaction thesis, let's say, that I'm putting forward, but I think it has a lot of value. Also, the writings of Timothy Snyder about Putin's Russia, this is another. There are resonances with that as well, because of Putin, the way that Putin has done propaganda in his dictatorship, essentially, or in Russia, has involved lots of strange and, let's say, stupefying actions and spectacles and pageants. He had sort of a kind of a director, sort of a theater director, who kind of created weird events that sort of turned things to the irrational. And I think that the stupefaction is closely linked to sort of irrationalism, and to the sense that you can never, and a cynicism, a deep cynicism about our ability as human beings to use our minds to do things slightly better, to improve, to learn. And the right-wing project is to interrupt that and to push people back, okay, and to make people less able to learn. And it's not a matter of where you are now in terms of your education level, or how smart you think you are. It's a matter of the decision. This is something I said in the other episode. Decision all of us have to make about whether we decide to be, at any given moment, to become more educated, to learn more about other people, learn more about the world, and to then grow, or to turn against that and to just to be stupefied, to be, to drug ourselves up on our own supply, or whatever it is, or to just shut ourselves off in some form or other, and just say, it's all been done before, and it's all sealed up, and I don't care, okay? And so that's where, and this links also to the idea of apocalyptic nihilism that I've there's an episode a few months back where I talked about apocalyptic nihilism, and also I've written about it. Apocalyptic nihilism is a form of, or is one of the elements of this sort of stupefaction, or this irrationalism and cynicism, deep cynicism. about the world and about each of our individual lives. So anyway, so I just wanted to put this out there, and I hope you found some things in it that are interesting. And if, please share any comments you have. You know, I'm missing. I think there are a lot of examples of how our society has been stupefied. Also, the media has a huge role in stupefying, the population, and not only the right-wing media. So anyway, and actually, don't look up the Netflix movie nominally about a asteroid, but actually more about climate change, and the media has a lot of stupefying elements to it, and it's an anti-stupefaction satire. So anyway, so please like the video if you liked it, and also please please subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying the content here or you're finding it interesting, and I hope to see you in the next video.